Hi guys, good afternoon from rainy and cold Plattsburgh. I hope you had a great weekend. Here we are, and we are covering the last two chapters of sports neuroscience. And next week is the week you have to move towards your submission. So today I'm going to create two videos. That's the first one. Hopefully the other one I have the time to do it today for Wednesday. But let's start with this one and then move along. So the first chapter for this week, understanding neural mechanisms of memory in rapid recognition of football formations. All right, so what we're going to talk about today, and I have my notes right here, is that we're going to talk about the stages of learning, the brain mechanisms to do that, how stress and sleep is affecting that, and what else? Yeah, some technologies that we talked about before, some technologies that we can use to collect data. All right, uh, learning process. We're going to use a classic model of how we learn. So we have the early motor, the early stage, and the automatic stage. In the early stage, there's some deliberate effort to understand what is going on, and that's the stage that the actual learning takes place. And I've used an example in the outline is where let's say we have a quarterback. That's the typical research we have in this domain. Is slow to make decisions, and the brain works really hard cognitively. In the automatic stage now, we have done the most of the learning, so we're going into an unconscious mode of operation. We're faster, we have less error, and we're more accurate, and we're not relying so much on working memory as before. So our brain does not work as hard. Okay, does it make sense? So the attention and the working memory are not unlimited resources. Okay, so as we understand that our goal as coaches tomorrow is to move, of course, the athlete from the early stage to the automatic stage, right? It makes sense because we're trying to teach them something. Now, how can we measure learning? Can be tracked by changes in the brain activity, and we have the learning when it's supposed to happen, to take place the way it was supposed to happen, go from one stage to the other, because of course, as you understand, the early always comes before the automatic, and you have to spend enough time to the early before you go to automatic. So that would be healthy learning. If it's not done properly, then we have the insufficient learning. Then we have to go back and maybe we have to relearn stuff and so on. Now, how do we measure that? EEG and fMRI. We have brain waves and oxygenated blood. We've talked about that. I don't want to cover it again. What I want to just say is that you remember that fMRI is pretty good about spatial recognition, and EEG is very good about temporal recognition. It's really fast. fMRI can go really deep and can cover the whole brain and identify where it's happening and whatever oxygen um, saturation is happening, hemoglobin saturation is happening. So if we could employ both, we could just then uh, take the benefits from both worlds and have better information, right? Because again, our goal is to track the learning process through these two um, mechanisms. All right. So how does the brain form, organize, and retrieve memories? So we have two streams. We talk about the dorsal and the ventral. The dorsal is more spatial, has to do with the where, right? So for quarterback, again, the quarterback will have to identify through space what is going on, right? And ventral is the what pathway. So now we're getting a different kind of information, and it's not about the place, it's about the what is going on exactly. So that's how we get the memory. Both streams give information to the hippocampus, and I don't want to go into details into this process, but that's how we do memory retrieval. Now, when we simulate game decision, what is going on? As we said before, and that's a theme that I'm going to keep repeating for this chapter, is that the brain requires more attentional resources in the very beginning. Okay, and hippocampus is well known for associating the inputs and the outputs, input outputs. So in the very beginning, we don't put context. We just want them to learn. But then, as we add context through practice, the hippocampus is getting involved more and more. So then we move from the dorsal pathway and rely more on the ventral pathway. When we move to the ventral pathway, we have less cognitive load, as we said before, and we can take that attention that we were using to learn the game to other aspects of the game that are happening around us. Because again, attention is limited, right? And we've covered that in class as well. Now, again, not a long chapter, but again, I have tried to combine a lot of information in these videos, and I'll try to keep it short. How can we use that for quarterback training? So, as we said, in the early stages, we have more reliance on attention and working memory, and it's useful to give corrective feedback. And one example is yards in football, right? Um, and by doing that again and again and again and again and again, in our hippocampus, we create a database. Now, in the later stage, when we go to automatic, there's less cognitive load. We are again faster. We have less variable reaction time and less errors. So now, in neuroscience, there's something that's called anterior-posterior shift, and that's very important because it can be a metric for training. And what do I mean by that? That as coaches, we can use it when we are in the anterior part of our brain using more. We should do less variation, little variation in the learning, and as there's that shift that we're talking about, then we start increasing the variation. So by using fMRI and EEG, we can see that and adjust training based on that. Again, we're trying to use the shift as a training metric. How cool is that, right? One thing we're going to talk about that affects attention and eventually performance is stress. So we need to make sure that whatever automatic decision the player is taking to training, that transfers into game-like situations. So stress, we do know stress affects attention. Attention, as we said, takes away some resources of our brain. So we need to be careful when we add stress in the training, but definitely we need to add stress. We need to add stress so we can affect attention, because that pressure is something that will happen during a game anyway. Okay? Now, if we don't recruit the memory system that we should, that could be detrimental to learning. So what we need to do here is not only understand where the athlete is in the learning process, in which stage, where is the learning is taking place, and if that's the place that could maximize performance for that specific athlete. At this point, we need to talk about preferential engagement. We have the rule-based memory system and we have the visual similarity system. The rule-based memory system would be, I'm the quarterback and I'm counting players in front of me in order to identify how they have formed, and then take action based on that. The visual is like, it looks like that, so I'm taking action. I'm not actually counting. Now I have an example here. If the coach from the other team creates a similar system that looks like I know what they're playing, but it's different, then we'll have more errors. And that's why I say between category variance is low, we have more errors. If the variance was high and we're still using visual similarity, then we'll have less errors. All right. Now, what's the practical application? Coach should monitor which system is recruited, and then based on that, make adjustments. Is it rule-based or is visual similarity? The last thing for today is to talk about sleep. And I'm not going to go into detail. I hope you know that sleep has different stages. We have the first stage, right? That light sleep. Have stage 2 that eye movement is stopping and the body temperature drops. Stage 3 that the temperature even drops even more, and it's called deep sleep. We also have stage 4 where we have even more delta waves, and that's what we call slow wave sleep, and that's important. And then we have REM, right? In REM we have eyes darts back and forth, but the brain, there's activity like it's awake, it's active, right? Now, what is important here is that if the sleep deprivation really affects memory. And if it affects memory, it affects performance, because that's what we're trying to do here, right? Learn something. So, if you lose, instead of 8 hours, you sleep 6 hours, you will lose 40 to 60% of your REM. You also lose stage 2 and stage 1 as well. But mainly I will focus on REM. So by losing, why is that important if we lose REM? REM has been associated with emotional integration of memories, so that part. So if we lose that part, the hypothesis we're missing a part of the memory, so we can't retrieve it, we can't use it as efficiently. And also it has been associated with creativity and problem solving, which is, as you understand, very, very important in sports. Um, and that's why my conclusion for this chapter is to allow the coach allow his or her athletes to sleep as much as the body requires, right? And we do know that we have early trainings, and a lot of times sleep is is categorized as something bad, because if you sleep, it looks like you're not motivated or you're lazy. However, if you do that as a coach, you may be undermining your own work, because your athlete cannot learn as much as you think they should or they could. That's all for now, guys. Don't forget to lift intentionally, not habitually, and hopefully I will make the next video today. That's for Wednesday. Have a great week.